Hi, I'm photographer Judea Jackson. Welcome to my tutorial on enhancing the eyes in Photoshop. To see more, check out my blog listed right here. Okay, so as you can see, we already have our image open in Adobe Photoshop's RAW converter. If you're not shooting RAW, you should be. It just adds way more depth and possibilities for editing. So right here, I'm just going to bump up the fill light, get rid of some of those muddy darks, and I'm going to go ahead and bump up my clarity before opening. That just gives it a little bit more sharpness in those midtones. Okay, so today we want to enhance the eyes. We're going to be focusing on a couple of just really quick, easy ways to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and open this all the way up and zoom in to where I want to focus. Now as you can see, Hillary's eyes are a little too soft for what I'd like. So I'm going to go ahead and make another layer of the background. That's going to be my first thing that I do anytime I'm doing touching up. Now I'm going to go over and get my quick selection tool, and I'm going to select the colored area of the eyes, and I'm going to get my dodge tool. Now you want your tool about the size of the area of the lighter color in her eyes. And you don't want it overexposed, so let's put that nice down, about 18. Make sure you click Protect Tones. Now what we're going to do is we're going to just go ahead and bump up the midtones and highlights just a little bit with this dodge tool. As you can see, it's creating a really nice glow. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to go around and burn the shadows and maybe bring back a little bit of midtones in a second too. Now, I don't want the shadows nearly as strong, so I'm going to bring my tool intensity way down. Now, as you can see, that just adds a little bit more detail in the eye. It really sharpens those edges. Okay, now I'm switching to midtones. I'm just going to touch that up right there. Just adds a little bit more depth to the eyes. Okay, now to select the other eye. I don't really need that first eye selected, so you can just click off it with any of the selecting tools. Okay, so now I'm selecting this eye, and I'm just going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to dodge the highlights and the midtones. I usually prefer to do midtones first. There we go. And switch to highlights real quick. This is also a great way of creating a catch light if you need one. Okay, now we're just going to go ahead and burn down the midtones and the shadows. Great. Now I've got her eyes pretty decent. They're a little too twilighty, I guess. So I'm going to go ahead and keep adding a little bit more enhancements. Now I still want them sharper, so I'm going to go ahead and keep burning some of the darker colors around her eyes. Give her a nice lash line, really define the set of the eyes. Now, her whites of her eyes are pretty good. We shot in natural light, and she had pretty nice whites of her eyes, but we're going to go ahead and enhance those just a little bit for an extra little pop. So I just took my quick select tool again, and when you have a problem with your quick select tool, if it selects too much, just go into the mask tool and paint in the areas you don't want selected. So I'm going to select the brush and just paint in the iris of her eye. Around the edges there, just clean it up a bit. Great, so now we have our whites only selected. I'm just going to bump those up in the levels just a teeny tiny bit on the highlight end. There. Good. Fantastic. Okay, now I want to go over to layers, And move that out of the way. Great. So you can see the difference, what we've done here so far. Let's zoom out for a better view. So her eyes are definitely starting to pop more. They're a little too intense and unrealistic. You always want to keep it real, so you can just dial down your opacity. Right about there. It gives me a nice good pop. You could also always go and just make a quick mask and mask in what you want and what you don't. We're actually going to do something similar to that in just a second. So let's go ahead and create another copy of this layer. Oops, well, we don't really need that one, but let's create a copy of this layer. And then dial it up, dial it down, so you can see the difference. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and create that mask. And I am going to paint in a little bit just around there. That just brings down the intensity a little bit so it's a little bit more realistic looking. Okay, and now I'm going to go sharpen. Make sure you click the actual image and not the mask when you go to sharpen. So let's sharpen that up just a little bit. Now it's not going to be very perceptible from this distance, but it does make a little bit of a difference. Okay, so here we are. We're going to go ahead and go to poster edges, and this is going to give us a nice sharp detail around the edges of the eyes, making it almost disappear from that soft focus. So let's back out here. As you can see, it's very posterized, and I think I want to bump up my edge thickness a little bit. There we go. And the intensity right about there. Okay, so we've got our posterized layer and we have our clipping mask. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in that whole clipping mask. Great. Now to erase out the parts that I want sharper, I'm going to go ahead and switch to white with my paint tool on the clipping mask and paint in the areas that need a little extra boost of sharpness. So there you go. You can see that posterization gave us nice dark lines around her eyes. Okay, let's just dial this down just a little bit. And there you can see we have a really nice pop. Really sharp, really clean, and very, very quick. So, as you can see, that is pretty much what you end up with. Really, really fast, really, really easy. That's about it. Let me show you the difference. Oh, and then let's go ahead and combine down our layers. And you can do this in the Edit tool at the top of the menu, or you can just hit Command E for combining your layers. I always like to keep an archive of the background layer, and you'll see why. When you have a clipping mask, this is what you get, so you can see the difference with the mask and without. Okay, I hope you found today's tutorial useful, and please put any questions you have in the comments. Be sure to check out my blog, where I blog about pretty much all things creative at judeajackson.wordpress.com. Thanks for tuning in.